Most people assume that after 70, your body starts making the decisions for you. Now, that's not what I found. My name is Edward, and I'm 77 years old. What I found is that somewhere along the way, I started making decisions for my body, quietly, without realizing it, and most of them were wrong. There were things I stopped doing, not because a doctor told me to, not because I was in pain, but because some part of me had quietly accepted that those things no longer belonged to me, that their season had passed. And I want to tell you today that belief, that quiet, polite surrender, it costs more than you know. I want to start with something that happened to me about 3 years ago. I was sitting in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, nothing unusual about the day, and my grandson came in and asked me if I wanted to go throw a ball around in the yard. And I heard myself say, before I had even finished thinking it, "No, I'm fine here." He nodded and went outside alone. And I sat there with my coffee, and I told myself I was just tired. But the truth was something else. The truth was I had stopped believing that kind of moment was still for me. I had retired from joy without submitting any paperwork. That was when I began to pay attention. Not to my body in the clinical sense, not to symptoms or checkups, but to the things I had quietly walked away from. And what I found, when I looked honestly, was not one thing and not one moment. It was a pattern. 5 things, specifically, that I had let go of, that my body and my mind were still desperately asking for. The first was physical touch. Not romantic touch, just touch. The simple human contact of a hand on your shoulder, a real embrace that lasts longer than 2 seconds, sitting close to someone you love. After 70, many of us live in an invisible bubble. Our children are busy. Our friends have passed or moved. Our spouses, if we are lucky enough to still have them, have drifted into the polite choreography of shared routine. We stop reaching. We stop initiating. We tell ourselves we are not the demonstrative type, or that people are busy, or that it would seem strange at our age to ask for closeness. But the body does not stop needing it. The nervous system does not retire. Loneliness without touch is a physical condition, not just an emotional one. Blood pressure rises. Our cortisol climbs. The immune system quietly weakens. And all you needed was to hold your granddaughter's hand a little longer before she left. I started making small changes. When my son visited, I did not just nod from the chair. I stood up and I held him. When my neighbor came to the door, I did not keep the screen between us. And something shifted. Not dramatically, quietly. The way the right things always shift. The second thing was learning. Not formal education, not classes or certificates, just the ordinary act of trying to understand something you did not understand before. After 70, many people stop feeding their curiosity. They watch the same programs. They follow the same routines. They have their opinions already formed and see no reason to disturb them. And the brain, which is still plastic, still capable of growth well into old age, begins to slow down. Not because it has reached its limit, but because no one is asking anything of it anymore. I picked up a book on a subject I knew nothing about. I asked my grandson to show me how something worked that I had always dismissed as belonging to the younger generation. And I noticed within weeks that my thinking felt clearer, that I was more present in conversations. The brain responds to being needed. It always has. The third was time spent outdoors. Not exercise in the organized sense, though that matters too, but simply being outside, in the light, in the air, with no particular destination. After 70, the world shrinks by a few degrees each year if you allow it to. The radius gets smaller. The errands get closer to home. The chair by the window starts to substitute for the window itself, and the consequences are more serious than most people realize. Sunlight regulates the hormones that control your sleep, your mood, and your sense of time. Fresh air is not a romantic idea. It is biology. And the simple act of walking outside, even slowly, even briefly, reconnects the body to rhythms it was built to follow. I began going outside every morning before I did anything else. Not far, sometimes just to the end of the driveway and back. But I went, and the days that began that way were different from the ones that didn't. The fourth was expressing what I actually felt. This one is harder to talk about. Men of my generation were not raised to name emotions in real time. We were raised to manage them, to file them away, to present a calm and capable face to the world. And for decades that served a kind of purpose. But after 70, when the world has stopped requiring so much performance from you, that habit does not simply fall away. It stays, and it hardens. And what was once discipline becomes distance. Distance from your family, from your own experience, from the full weight of being alive. Unexpressed emotion does not disappear. It finds other ways out. A tension in the chest, a short temper that appears without warning, a heaviness that you call fatigue, but that no amount of sleep touches. I began to say more of what I meant. When something moved me, I said so. When I was grateful, I named it directly, not as a pleasantry, but as a fact. And what I received back from the people around me was not discomfort. It was relief, as if they had been waiting for permission. The fifth was making plans, not grand ones, not vacations or projects or ambitions that require explanation. Just the ordinary act of having something ahead of you that you are looking forward to. After 70, many people stop planning. They stop making reservations, suggesting gatherings, circling dates, partly from practical caution, partly from the unspoken fear that planning implies a future that cannot be guaranteed. But the mind needs a horizon. Without one, it turns inward. And turning inward without direction is not reflection. It is rumination. It is the slow, quiet weight of days that feel identical. When I started placing small things in front of me, a dinner I was looking forward to, a phone call I had scheduled, a place I wanted to visit even if it was only 20 minutes away. The week changed shape. Time moved differently. I moved through it with more intention. I am not telling you these things as lessons. I did not arrive at them cleanly or quickly. I arrived at them the way most people arrive at things that matter, slowly and a little late, and with the particular clarity that comes from having made the mistake first. What I know at 77 is this: the body does not ask for much, but it asks consistently. It asks for touch and learning and light and honesty and something worth moving toward. And the quiet tragedy is not that these things become impossible after 70, it is that we convince ourselves they do, that we have had our turn, that needing them is somehow asking for too much. You're not asking for too much. Your body is still here. It is still listening, and it is still waiting patiently for you to stop deciding on its behalf that the season has passed. Because it hasn't. It really hasn't.